lot of you guys who have been doing short sales, where we struggle with these sometimes is not with the first, because generally speaking, if there's one mortgage or if there's only a first mortgage, then short sales are relatively straightforward. But when you start adding second lien holders, then we run into complications typically. HAFA acknowledges that and is now trying to embed a solution to the potential problem right at the get-go, which is, I think, really fantastic. And Jeff just mentioned something else, so let's clarify this. Homeowners are not going to be required to have any sort of paybacks, no sort of promissory notes, none of this Mickey Mouse that agents have been having to wade through for the past few years. That's a sea change in short sales. I mean, as far as that goes, Jeff, is that something that applies across the boards, or is it just the mortgage companies? Like, for example, PMI companies are starting to try to make demands. Mm-hmm. How does that affect PMI companies? Is there anything in HAFA?
Well, let's just go through the three categories. The first mortgagee, if they're under HAFA, they're clearly participating in HAFA. They are required to release the borrower from any deficiency. If the second lien holder receives an incentive, they have to not only release the lien, but also they have to release the borrower from any deficiency judgment. No promissory notes, no debt collectors, none of that. And then for private mortgage insurers, there's not an incentive. And we are hearing from you and others that this is a problem, and we are going to be, well, in fact, I've already sent a question over to Treasury this morning asking about, alerting them to the problem and asking if they have any plans for addressing it.
Okay, so Jen, I want to again point out to what Jeff just said. We've been hearing from all of our students across the country that we're starting to see the PMI companies starting to creep into the transactions at the last minute and demand promissory notes or some sort of seller contribution prior to the closing. I know you guys at Harris Real Estate University CDPDs have been running into that more frequently, and what you just heard Jeff say is because we and others have alerted him of the problem, he has now brought it to Treasury's attention. Bottom line here, guys, is when you're experiencing any issues with lenders, it is your responsibility to either notify us or notify Jeff directly so that he can do something about it. National Association of Realtors is our only voice in Washington, D.C., and we have to give them the tools so they can do their job. Now, so lenders, there's lots of confusion about lenders that are participating. Is there, I get all the lenders that are participating are all the lenders that participated in HAMP originally. That doesn't necessarily unconfuse things.
Well, no, it doesn't, but it should help. I'm sorry. Were you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so servicers, we say lenders. Technically, it's servicers, so we can use the term interchangeably because most lenders hire a servicer, which is maybe the division of the Wells Fargo that is a servicer, for just to pick one example. So servicers representing more than 90% of the mortgages in the country have signed up to participate in HAMP. And Treasury did something that we really appreciate and we're concerned about. They made HAFA a part of HAMP. So if the servicer is signed up for HAMP, they are automatically considered to be obligated to comply with the HAFA program. Now, that doesn't guarantee any one borrower, the current homeowner, is guaranteed a short sale under HAFA, but they are, under the terms of the program, guaranteed an analysis by the servicer to see if they qualify for a short sale. And we think that's very key because they're not going to have to go around the country and sign people up to participate.
That's right. Very good. So a lot of confusion as well. Fannie and Freddie specific. If the investor is Fannie and Freddie aren't participating in HAFA. Am I understanding this correctly, Jeff?
Well, they're not participating in it yet. Of course, they participate through their servicers. They are not dealing directly with the homeowner, but they have contracts with all the major servicers. And when the original guidelines were announced by Treasury on November 30th, they said the Fannie and Freddie loans aren't covered. They are going to be making some small changes to HAFA. And I started calling on December 1st, and I said, well, when are those changes going to come out? And we're a little worried about them because the whole idea here is uniformity. We don't want there to be very many differences between the regular HAFA program and the Fannie and the Freddie HAFA programs. So ever since December 1st, we have been 2 weeks away from seeing the tweaks from Fannie and Freddie. And now we're a week away. So, one of these days it's going to be true. I call every week, and we're getting close.
So what I'm hearing you say is one of these days Fannie Freddie are going to come out with their own quote-unquote HAFA guidelines program, and we're anticipating it to be very similar, if not the same, as the existing HAFA program.
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, it won't be the same, but they are assuring me it's going to be very similar, but until I see it, I'm reserving judgment.
I understand. All right, so just to clarify this, I see this question coming in a lot. Can a seller not miss payments? Who initiates a HAFA short sale? How does that work?
Well, the servicer is supposed to evaluate borrowers who are unable to keep their home under the modification program that's known as HAMP, the Loan Modification Program. Of course, everybody's first objective is to keep people in their homes if at all possible. This is good for the home, the community, the neighborhood, the housing market, not to have too many homes for sale. The home ownership is our goal. But if that just isn't possible, then once several things happen, the servicer or the lender has to consider that family for HAFA. And one of those things is that they just request a short sale or a deed in lieu. They do not have to be delinquent. They don't even have to go into a trial HAMP. But if they do go into a trial HAMP and don't meet the terms, if they don't complete the trial, if they miss 2 or more permanent HAMP payments, in other words, for whatever reason, they aren't able to keep their home, they do not comply with their duties under the HAMP program, or they can't get into the HAMP program, or they want to do a short sale or a deed in lieu. All those things trigger a review by the servicer of whether or not that borrower is a good prospect for a short sale.
Okay, so someone doesn't have to miss payments. They don't have to go through the loan mod process first. They can literally call up their lender, or the realtor can initiate the short sale and say, and then you said 90% of the lenders essentially are participating in HAFA. So it can be initiated by the seller, obviously, the borrower, or it could be initiated by the realtor. And really, there doesn't have to be they don't have to go through a loan mod or the rest of it to actually get started with this program.
Well, the servicer, I think, is supposed to make sure that that homeowner understands that they have a possible loan mod option. Mm-hmm. But if they do not have to accept it. So if they have that conversation and they say, yes, I've just done, I want to move, I have another job, I want to do whatever it is, they have that option. But they will be considered for a modification. Okay,
it's important that the agents out there understand that a lot of people think that the borrower, in order to qualify for HAFA, has to have gone through a HAMP loan mod, a trial loan mod, and that is not the case. So please be clear on that. All right. So what is let's talk about paperwork involved in an in a HAFA short sale. I know one of the stated goals that you had for the HAFA originally was standardized paperwork. In other words, all lenders would use the same package of information. That is, as far as the paperwork, anything added, subtracted from the way short sales were done before with HAFA?
Well, yes, there are standard forms, and as I said, the servicer evaluates the borrower, and they'll take a look at the property, too, to see whether or not this is a short sale deal, whether it's going to make sense. If that property has 6 liens, maybe they're going to say it just isn't feasible. If the investor says, do not approve short sales, well, you're stuck because the entity that owns the mortgage gets to call the shots. But let's say that the servicer looks at the situation, decides that this is a good short sale opportunity. That's what triggers the uniform form called a short sale agreement. Typically, the servicer will fill that out. Now, I suppose a realtor or a seller could fill it out trying to get the ball rolling and get the attention of the servicer, but an awful lot of things in that short sale agreement, in the end, have to be identified by the servicer. And the key things are the net amount that they have to get in order to approve the short sale, and also the approvable closing costs, including the amount of the commission. Those will be specified in the short sale agreement up front before the property is marketed. Of course, there'll be some transition where properties have already been marketed, but in the fresh case, maybe even before the seller has an agent listing. So that's the first step, the short sale agreement. The servicer fills it out, sends it to the homeowner.
Makes sense. So does a property have to be listed with a realtor, or can a homeowner, say, for example, someone that's trying to sell it themselves at FSBO, use HAFA?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say this is not a do-it-yourself, and I think Treasury was very wise to recognize that a short sale requires specialized expertise, and it doesn't have to be with a realtor, of course, but a real estate licensee, a real estate agent licensed under the state laws. The homeowner is going to have to find a broker and list the property and work with an agent in order to sell their home under the HAFA program.
So I hope all of you out there are paying attention to what he just said. As a lot of you know, most of your for sale by owners in your community are doing so right now because they are underwater in their homes and don't know, frankly, what their options are.